Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
Hi, this is Zak Mir with the Bulletin Board Heroes here on Share Talk for Monday the 12th of April, starting off with Arkle Resources, which couldn't be resisted given the way that the shares have gapped up today through the 50-day moving average of 0.9 to even broken the 200-day line at 1.03 pence. The view is that the longer we stay above the 50-day line and that broken January resistance line at 0.92, the greater the chance of a move to the top of the rising trend channel from back in February last year, as high as the 2.3 to 2.4 pence area, and that could be seen as soon as the end of next month. So clearly one is hoping for the type of vertical move that we had in, let's say, the end of January, that kind of thing, to be repeated pretty soon with the gap, unfilled gap, as yet unfilled gap to the upside. Then one would be more confident in that kind of quite ambitious timescale. On to Asimilar, which I've had a look at, I suppose, from maybe the late 20s upwards. That seemed to be the sort of safe time. I think there was a gap there, unfilled gap through resistance in December, and basically that's remained unfilled. That is one of our more reliable, perhaps the most reliable signal. Once the gap remains unfilled for a reasonable amount of time, maybe 2 or 3 sessions. Current situation is that we bounced off the 20-day moving average at 39 pence, and while we're above that, looking towards 55 pence as soon as the end of next month, perhaps sooner. If you're a fan of the shares and are sort of wondering why they are not doing better than they have done in the recent past, the big figure target here over the next 2 to 3 months is up to 90 pence at the top of last year's wide trend channel. At this stage, only back, I suppose, well below 35 pence, and the 50-day line really delaying or questioning the upside scenario. On to BowLeven, which has been inspired by the way that almost every oil stock, whether worthy or not, has been able to bounce in the recent past. The technical reason for getting BowLeven back after a long time in the wilderness is the key reversal to the upside that we've seen today off the lows. That tends to be a good signal. We're also broken above the 200-day line at 4.7 pence. Probably all we're waiting for now, for people who maybe are doubters of BowLeven, is an end-of-day close through that resistance line from February. That is around the 5.4 pence level. And an end-of-day close above that would then imply that the shares could hit as high as 9 pence at the top of last year's trend channel. We did have an unfilled gap to the upside in January, and that took the shares to 9 pence. But on this occasion, it is a key reversal to the upside, which is nearly as good. So let's see if that works out. Moving along to Bluebird Merchant Ventures, and here you can see there's been a solid candle today so far with a rebound from Friday off the 50-day moving average at 3.5 pence, a break of that resistance line there from November at the same level. And the view is that the longer we stay above 3.5 pence and that broken November line, the greater the chance of a move towards the resistance line from last May, currently predicting a target as high as 7 pence for the end of this May. So over the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. A decent end-of-day close today above the 200-day lines kind of seals the deal in terms of expecting 7 pence over the near term. Quite proud of the current setup here on Corcel. Here the shares did actually manage to break higher, break the range, which was suggested even before they did break the range. I think with that sometime around the first session of the month, with the move up towards 1.4 pence. The reason for the relative confidence that we were on our way was the way that the shares had delivered a good push through the neutral 50 RSI zone, and also, of course, the long candle as well. And it just seemed to be that we spent enough time consolidating and it was time to move. Current view is that while we're above that September peak there at 1.6 pence, we're looking towards 2.3 pence at the top of a rising trend channel from August last year. A stock that's back in business after an extended period away from the Bulletin Board Heroes is Carrera Network Security. We've had a 2-month consolidation for the shares, but it looks as though they're ready to pop now with this handle formation after the consolidation during February and March. Looking at it closely to see whether there's a gap, but whether there is or not, we've got this decent handle, and an end-of-day close through 15 pence should be enough to deliver a move up towards 26 pence, which is an April line of resistance from this time last year. That could be seen as soon as the end of next month. It's very often that we see 15 pence and then 25 pence as the progression for the shares. I know we had a bull trap there in February, but normally 15 and 25 tend to follow quite quickly. On to a stock which I haven't looked at for quite a long time. I've written about it, but here we've got Chaarat Gold, and here you can see that shares have finally broken the 50-day moving average and that line of resistance from September. I suppose there's also been a bit of a recovery in the gold price as well. Initial target here up to 32 pence, which is a line of resistance from December. If we can clear that over the next week or so, then we'll be looking for the big picture target here, perhaps by the end of next month, as high as 45 pence at the top of a rising trend channel, which has been in place on the daily chart for, in fact, the best part of nearly 4 years. So it could be quite an event really for Chaarat over the near term in terms of a recovery for the shares after their recent foray back below 25 pence. On to Escape Hunt, which is clearly a beneficiary of a potential move out of the lockdown situation. Here you can see that we've got a rising trend channel that's been in place since, I suppose, this time last year. Top of the channel there heading for 50 pence, and that's valid while we hold above last month's intraday peak at 33 pence. So let's see if we can get that target hit by the end of next month. Moving along to a stock which is, I know, very popular, and I've interviewed the company as well, and it's good to hear the story. Here we've got Helium One, and interesting that the shares have now broken through the target that we had before, around 12.5, 13 pence. While we're above the top of the broken channel there from December, let's call that 12.5 pence. We're looking for a target here as high as 18 pence at a December resistance line projection, and that could be seen as soon as the end of next month. So good news there, we hope. Moving along to a stock which has been requested, and where the requestee is quite enthusiastic about it. IMC Exploration looks like a sort of bottom fishing situation, but we've broken that falling wedge from January, and the longer the shares remain above 0.8 pence, the greater the chance of a move over the next 2 to 3 months, up towards 1.7 pence at that July resistance line projection from last year. Stop loss back below 0.7, I think, is about the tightest one could achieve. Onto a stock which I've been admiring from afar. I think I've also interviewed the company a couple of times as well, Predator Oil and Gas. Good to see the shares back above the March resistance at 16 pence. While we're above 16 pence, looking towards a February resistance line projection as high as 32 pence as soon as the end of June. So let's see if Predator can manage that rather lofty target over the near term. It'd be good to see that. A company which always sticks in my mind as being one that stated that it was going to do an aggressive investor relations campaign. Not sure how that went, but at least in terms of the share price, it looks as though the shares are ready for a recovery. We had that spike in January up towards 14.5 pence. And on this particular run, it looks as though we could head up towards the top of the rising trend channel from the end of December as high as 16 pence as soon as the end of next month. And that scenario valid while we hold above the initial April support at 6.5 pence. So above 6.5, looking for 16 pence plus by the end of next month. If you're cautious on the stock, maybe you'd wait for an end-of-day close above the 50-day moving average around 8.5 pence. But looks as though enough consolidation and enough price action strength is there, especially with the MACD buy signal, buy cross, and also the bullish divergence versus in the RSI window versus the lower late March support. Just a few stocks to go now. One is a real blockbuster in terms of the bullishness that we're seeing on the chart at the moment, Skinbiotherapeutics. I think I promised lofty targets here, and we're heading towards the first of them. That's at 90 pence, which is a September resistance line projection. That could be seen as soon as the end of this month with a fair wind. And the big picture target for fans of the shares, as high as £1.20 over, I suppose, by the end of June. We'll probably do it for the next 2 to 3 months. £1.20 plus is possible. The upside valid, especially while we hold above the March resistance at 57.7 pence. So hopefully old resistance will become new support for Skinbiotherapeutics. A couple of stocks to go now. Just are looking at Transense Technology again. I think after a long time, Technologies rather. Here we've had one of our favourite setups, which is the unfilled gap through resistance. That was achieved in February, and the shares made decent progress. There was a gap down after that, but we never filled the gap down to the top of the gap down to 60 pence. The view now is that while we're above the 50-day moving average at 70 pence, we could hit the top of a rising trend channel from back in 2019 as high as £1.20 by the end of June. Clearly, if you're cautious on the shares, you wait for the March peak at 86 pence to break, but with support coming in above the 50-day line and that unfilled gap to the upside, one would take the view that the shares are on their way already. That's it from me today. More updates tomorrow.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.